Welcome everyone to this final meeting of April for the Rotary Club of Greenville. I'm your club president, Wade Culp. It's a delight to have you here with us today. We had a great crowd that I got to see at Discover Rotary, so hope we'll get some new blood in the club too. And we've got a fun program today. We'll be hearing more about our work to combat Alzheimer's, as well as celebrating in our way Earth Day with a presentation from the Director of Naturaland Trust. So, with that to look forward to, I'd like to invite Caroline up to deliver our invocation and lead us in the pledge.
I'm going to do a little commercial right quick. If you would like to give the invocation and pledge at a future meeting, please reach out to me because it is my responsibility to recruit people to do this. And otherwise, you're going to see me up here every time. So I would encourage you to reach out to me. So let's start with our invocation. If you all could bow your heads, please. Lord of the universe, you have given most of mankind a strong desire to do good, to be honest, to serve others, and to faithfully fulfill their obligations to their neighbors. Help us as Rotarians and humans to do good. Help us as Rotarians and humans to be honest and ethical in all our dealings. Help us as Rotarians and humans to serve others. And help us as Rotarians and humans to faithfully fulfill our obligations as neighbors to our community, our nation, and the world. Amen. If you'll stand and join me in the pledge. And don't forget about Bert's pause punctuation, okay? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor to introduce our guests today. And as I introduce you, if you please would stand up so we can all give you a warm welcome. We have Brian Adkins, guest of Greg English. Welcome. We have John and Elaine Hester, guest of Elizabeth Lyons. Welcome. We have Karen Illies, guest of Amy Randall. Welcome. We have Rebecca Maddox, guest of Elizabeth Razor. Nope. We have Tim Arthur, guest of the club. Trip Eberhardt, guest of the club. Nadir Jalil, guest of the club. Welcome. Peter Tiffany, guest of the club. Kendra Williams, guest of the club. Welcome. Shannon Cantrell, guest of the club. We also have Shanae Wakefield, guest of Anisha Anderson. Welcome. Jeff Boss, guest of Phil Kilgore. Welcome. And then we have two visiting Rotarians, Virginia McKenzie, who is here from Seattle Rotary. Welcome. And Matthew Johnson, who is visiting from Abbeville County Rotary. Welcome. Thank you all for being here.
And a few more guests to mention. Many of you will know that we have an adopted elementary school here in Greenville, Alexander Elementary, and we recognize their teachers of the month and staff members of the month, and we have the winners for both February and March here with us. So if they would stand when I introduce them. The February winners were Jennifer Jerkowski, who is an English as a second language teacher, and Izzy Snyder, who is a school counselor. And the March winners were Maddie Pettigrew, who teaches third grade, and Sherry Sweat, who is a kindergarten aide. Thank you all for being here. Please listen carefully as we recognize the life of our Rotarian and longtime club member, James Covington Parham, Jr. James Parham, known to his many friends as Jim or Poss, was born in Sumter, South Carolina in 1930 and died on March 6, 2023. He was graduated from Princeton University, Oxford University, where he was a Rhodes Scholar, and the Yale Law School. He joined Weich, Burgess, Freeman, and Parham in Greenville, where he practiced law for over 60 years. Beyond his distinguished legal career, Haas was a fighter pilot with the South Carolina Air National Guard, flying the F-104, the F-102, and F-86 jets. He was also a devoted husband to Peggy for 64 years, with whom he had 5 children. Active in the community, Haas was president of the South Carolina Bar, the Greenville County Bar, the Greenville United Way, and numerous other organizations. He also served as president of this club in the 1965 to 66 club year, which was the year then of our 50th anniversary. And at our 100th anniversary in 2016, he was then the oldest living president and a visible reminder of our club's distinguished past. Members of this club, including myself, will long remember his searing questioning of our speakers, as Haas was frequently the first to ask a question and would not rest content with an evasive answer, be the speaker, the head of a nonprofit, or a governor. Please join me in a brief moment of silence. Farewell, dear Haas, and thank you for your service to our club, our community, and our nation. I'd like to invite at this time Jim Perrier to come forward and introduce our speaker from CART.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a pleasure today to be able to introduce to you the Executive Director of the CART Fund. She will share with us a brief update on the Alzheimer's Research Fund that you're aware of. She came from Spartanburg to be with us, give a special time, but the limited time on the program, I'll just give a brief sketch of her background. She was born and reared in Spartanburg and graduated with a degree in journalism from the University of South Carolina in Columbia. Some of you may recognize it because just a few years ago, she was Miss Greenville and placed in the top 10 in the Miss South Carolina pageant. So she's been around before. And she has continued and still continues a special career in journalism, including being a TV host. Her public service and professional activity are overwhelming, frankly, even including being district governor of Western North Carolina. And when I say overwhelming, I suggest you go sometime when you have a chance to go to Google and get this very interesting write-up that a journalist wrote about her. It is fascinating. I might add today, as we hear her speak, it'd be a good day to hit those CART buckets rather hard. I was kind of smiling because the first time that I was the match, we have match, people who match whatever you put in. I saw Carolyn, the first time I was lined up to match, I saw Carolyn Stewart put a $20 bill in there, and I thought she was just getting it, but so I saw a while ago, and I was going to make her pay, and she said, "Will you go ahead and put $100 in there?" So that's keep that in mind. I very great pleasure and a privilege because, as you may know, I serve on the CART board. To have seen Tiffany take over the responsibility for that and the work she is doing. So let's give a good welcome for Tiffany.
I don't know about y'all, but if I could take Dr. Perrier on every one of my speaking engagements, it would just be the easiest gig ever because he is so grateful. And there are our friends from the Anderson Club here today as well. It is such an honor and a privilege to be with you guys today. Just to give you a brief update about the CART Fund. As Dr. Perrier said, I took over as the executive director in May of last year. So we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary of that. And I get the honor and privilege of working with so many volunteers like Dr. Perrier, like many of you in this room, Terry Weaver and so many, Dave Carpelite, so many of you who have been great supporters of CART. So I just wanted to give you a quick update because there are a lot of exciting things that are going on with the CART Fund right now. And so I'm going to give you a quick 1 through 6. I want you to visualize the die that I have in my hand. And hopefully this will help you remember. The 1 on a die stands for the power of 1. And because one person had this crazy idea in Sumter, South Carolina, more than 20 years ago, to create an opportunity to fund research and find a cure for Alzheimer's, the late Roger Ackerman, because of his crazy idea and the power of one person, he has truly made a difference. And now the CART Fund continues to give back 100% of everything that you and other Rotarians raise through those blue buckets directly to research. And next week at our annual meeting, our annual opportunity to award research grants, we will top $11.2 million that we have given away. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. It just reminds me that the power of one, any person can truly make a difference. When you think about the two on this die, I want you to remember that there are two ways to give. We will never get rid of those blue buckets on our tables, but we also recognize that a lot of folks don't carry change anymore. So fortunately, we did create an online donor portal that you can log in using your DAC-TB login, and your club and your district will get credit for those donations. It's mycartfund.org. You can even sign up to become a recurring donor, just like we do with the Rotary Foundation, allowing your donations to continuously come into our organization and give us the opportunity to raise even more money every year. I'm happy to answer questions about all of those later, but I wanted to just touch base on these quickly. The number 3 on your die represents the 3 researchers that we will award next week with grants totaling $800,000. They are flying in from all over the country next week, and I hope that you will take an opportunity to come and join us and meet them. Because of the generous sponsorship from your club, the Rotary Club of Greenville, the charitable funds that you raised this past year, you are the title sponsor of our annual meeting next week as we bring it to Greenville, yeah, that Greenville, for the very first time. So that will be held next Tuesday from 11 to 3 at the Embassy Suites on Verde, and we'll be announcing those top 3 researchers. The 4 on your die, I would be remiss if I didn't remind us all of the 4-way test, because that is what we as Rotarians live, work, and breathe by. And I want to be perfectly clear that I'm not standing here today asking you to give to the CART Fund instead of Polio Plus. Polio remains the #1 funding priority of Rotary International until we finish the job. I keep my pinky painted purple for Polio Plus at all times because it makes people ask me why. And I hope that you will do that as well. The 5 on your die stands for Gimme 5, whether it's $5 more in the bucket because you know who's maybe matching it, or if it's $5 more than you gave last year, or a recurring donor of $5 a month, or maybe your club sets a goal of 5% more than you did last year. I probably shouldn't mention this, but your club is currently in 5th place rolling into your district conference this weekend. I happen to know the Anderson Club is in the top 3. So no pressure if you guys want to contribute this week to bump your status in this district. But please think about those ways that you can give me 5. And finally, the number 6 on this die. I think that in my club in Western North Carolina and probably everywhere now, the 4 most dangerous words are when Tiffany Irvin says, I have an idea. People get really nervous for some reason, but it's okay to have a crazy idea. So the 6 words that I leave you with are to be a voice, not an echo. We don't have to do things the way we've always done it before, just because it's the way we've always done it. And we've tried that with the online giving. We've tried it with expanding into new districts and new clubs. And this year, the CART Fund has collected funds for more than 21 districts and more than 450 Rotary clubs. And I'm so excited to tell you guys, if you haven't gotten your Rotary magazine in the mail yet, on the cover, it says, "One piece at a time, the CART Fund seeks to solve the puzzle of Alzheimer's." We made the cover, guys. The Rotary magazine, something that we've all dreamt of seeing. 16 pages inside this magazine this month dedicated to the CART Fund and the work that we are doing, thanks to each of you. And it's quite an honor for me to get to tell my mother's story in this magazine. And so many of you have an Alzheimer's story. And the quote that they used for me in this magazine is something that I say every time I speak. Everywhere I go, someone has an Alzheimer's story, unfortunately. But our goal is for people to no longer have an Alzheimer's story. And thanks to individuals and clubs just like you all, we are making that happen. 1 coin, 1 piece of change, $1 bill, 1 credit card, 1 bequest, whatever it might be, at a time. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support. I hope that we'll see you in Greenville next week at the Embassy Suites. And I hope that you will consider joining us. You can also join us for all of our meetings every month. They're in your DAC TV calendar under multi-district events. But if you remember nothing else today, remember, be a voice, not an echo, because we all have different skills and talents and passions that we bring to the table. And for me, I'm passionate about Alzheimer's. I'm not going to be able to be a major donor to the Rotary Foundation. I'm just out there trying to figure out how to pay my mortgage some months, like a lot of other Rotarians. But I give every month to the Rotary Foundation, and I give every month to CART because it's the right thing to do. And I give my talents and skills and passions, whether it's public speaking or social media or special event planning, because we all have those. So my advice to you is to find your passion and make it your purpose. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support of the CART Fund.
Now would be a good time to put some money in the CART bucket if you haven't done that already, I guess. Well, I want to introduce our speaker to you. Max Stone brings biology and photography background to promote conservation in South Carolina and around the world. He graduated from Virginia Tech, and he now lives in Greenville with his wife and son, and joined Naturaland Trust as the executive director in 2012. He runs the operations, does grant writing and land management and communications for the trust. Mac is an accomplished author, speaker, a National Geographic explorer, and senior fellow with the International League of Conservation Photographers and Sea Legacy. His images have been widely published and internationally awarded, and his TED Talk has been viewed over 1 million times. Would y'all join me in welcoming Max Stone?
Thank you, Greg. Thank you all very much. It's an honor to be here. It's also an honor to have some break in between reading Pas's bio and my bio. So like as much time between those two is really good because nothing makes you feel so inadequate as hearing his bio. And I have to add, I have a daughter now too. So the pandemic was a productive time. We have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they're just wonderful, wonderful children, a boy and a girl, and it is just great. But I came up here 11 years ago to take over Naturaland Trust, a land trust that was founded by Tommy Weich, who is one of Pas's colleagues, as well as Wade's colleague. Yeah, and a member of this, of course, a member of anything philanthropic Tommy Weich did, and he was a genius, and he came up with this idea 50 years ago. This year marks our 50th anniversary to preserve special places and trusts for the future. And he got this brilliant idea after traveling to Los Angeles, of all places, and going there and seeing how homes were built all over the sides of the mountains. And he just thought, wow, this could happen very easily here in the upstate of South Carolina. We have to prevent this from happening. So he started Naturaland Trust and started buying land with his own money and leveraging dollars from the state to be able to preserve special places. And he preserved these special places through fee simple acquisition. And he focused on the blue wall, what he then deemed as the Mountain Bridge Wilderness, which is the area between the Table Rock Reservoir and the Poinsett Reservoir, which now we know as Jones Gap State Park, Watson Cooper Heritage Preserve, Caesar's Head State Park, Eva Chandler Heritage Preserve, this whole swath of protected land he helped architect. And today we continue on his mission of preserving special places and trusts for the future. And we look at waterways, we look at the Middle Saluda River, the North Saluda River, all the Saludas, the headwater streams that fuel public drinking supplies for the people that live here, as well as the endangered species that call this place home. And this is a green salamander. It's these live here and in the Smokies, and you can find them in the Rocky Crags in the upstate. Of course, this is also about balance. So it's about balancing these urban areas with places to access nature in the upstate and the mountains, so we can all have access to these places and enjoy them for ourselves. Whether you're hiking or fishing or enjoying wildlife or going out for hikes, these places, the hundreds of thousands of acres that we've helped protect, are now in trust for the future. So these comprise of the Jocassee Gorges Wilderness, for out west in Oconee County, as well as Pickens County. We now currently today own 8,500 acres. So these acreages are in flux. We're constantly buying land using state dollars or federal dollars in which we're applying for grants to then buy these properties to make them open and available to the public. And we do this behind the scenes. Tommy, the way he started doing this work was always behind the scenes. And we continue that work today. So a lot of the lands that we own, people have no idea that we own them. We're perfectly fine with that. So the Cancer Survivors Park is a property that we own that now, of course, is accessed by over 600,000 people every year. We own the 9 Times Forest in Pickens County. We helped establish Jones Gap State Park and Caesar's Head State Park. These are all places that hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people enjoy each year. And this time of year in particular is very special, of course. Spring is a beautiful time to go up into the mountains and see all the spring ephemerals that are coming up, from the orchids or to the trilliums. And for me, I especially enjoy as a photographer is always going out and looking for wildlife. This is on the North Saluda River, and you go out during the midday, you might find a common snapping turtle feeding on algae. But what's really unique is people often dismiss our rivers and our streams for the ones out west because they're exciting and they're raging, but our streams and our rivers are alive. And in the spring, it's particularly evident, especially in these small feeder streams, small headwater streams, because in the spring, lots of fish begin their mating rituals. These are called greenhead shiners. These are wonderful fish. And what they do is they lay their eggs in these piles of rocks. Now, these fish are too small to be able to form these piles of rocks for themselves. So what they do is they piggyback on the efforts of a bluehead chub, which have big enough mouths to be able to open and around these rocks to then build these nests so that bluehead chubs can lay their eggs inside the rocks. The greenhead shiners can lay their eggs in the rocks, and it creates this mass of life that pulses in the spring in these headwater streams. Just amazing stuff. Of course, if you're out in the spring, you always watch out after a rain because you might step on this is a red F. These are the terrestrial versions of the spotted newt. This is the terrestrial version of the red spotted newt. And also in the spring is what's really interesting. One of the reasons we protect land and we buy land is for the forests and the view sheds and of course the water, but it's also we live in an ecological hotspot. Things exist here that don't really exist in other areas of the country. And one of my favorite parts is what's actually about to happen, maybe in 5 days now, is the annual mating display of the blue ghost firefly. Have y'all ever heard of this animal? Tiny little thing. I mean, it's about I don't know, a lead pencil size firefly. Now, everybody this time of year goes out to Congaree National Park because you get the synchronous fireflies where they all blink in unison, and that happens for a few weeks in the spring. But up here in the Mountain Bridge Wilderness, we have the blue ghost firefly. And blue ghosts are unique because the males are the ones that are trying to attract females. And they only fly about a foot over the leaf litter. And they only exist in areas where the leaf litter is undisturbed. And instead of blinking, they emit a constant light. So constant, so it's always on. And if you go out there and you wait until it gets really, really dark, they will emit this constant light and they will be swirling around you. It is the most avatar thing I've ever seen. And I've photographed some amazing things all around the world. And what we have up here in South Carolina and the upstate in these undisturbed leaf litters in these forests is one of the most amazing things I have ever seen. It is mind-blowing. I go every year to try and go see this because you just can't imagine. It's like the forest has become alive and there's no sound. And there's all this life just swirling around you. And the reason why they're doing this is because the females are wingless. So they sit on top of the leaf litter and they wait for just that right pulse, and then they go a little boop, a little thing, and then the males will go find them. It's just amazing. And this is why we protect these lands, because these quiet little things live here and they thrive in these forests. And this is why we do another really cool insect that lives here in the upstate. This is called the woolly beach aphid. And I didn't even know anything about this until I was walking a property that we were going to look to preserve. And I'm always like trying to find something like what makes this property stand out? What makes this property unique? And I ran into this branch that it looked like it snowed. And it looked like it has dandruff on it. And these woolly beach aphids cover entire sections of these American beech trees. Never seen this before until I ran into one. And this is what happens. They're also called the boogie woogie insect. And they get this name because when they get disturbed, they start wagging their little woolly bodies and they start dancing in a way that is trying to warn predators not to come near them. But what they're doing is they're feeding on the sap of the beech tree. And then when they're feeding on it, they emit this honeydew that then drops down and it forms this little black fungus that's on the ground. So this is an easy way of finding these insects if you ever want to find them. Okay, so then the honeydew falls to the ground, emits this the sweet honeydew, sap basically. And then these bees will come and they'll feed on this fungus, and this fungus will then feed all kinds of other animals. Just amazing things that just happen in these forests. And so, of course, I photographed this and showed these photos to our grant makers, and then we ended up protecting, 16 acres along Highway 11 because we can tell stories about why these forests are so important, introduce people to new species that they had no idea existed. And the way we work is we look at little areas and we determine them to be our focus areas, and we'll just chip away at them at times. So if you've ever driven up to Caesar's Head State Park, you've probably passed Wildcat Wayside where they're selling boiled peanuts. This is an area, this is what we call the South Saluda River corridor. So this is what it looked like in 2005. And just after, 13 years, we could fill in the gaps, the critical gaps. And not just filling in gaps in a map, although we love doing that. It's more about what we can do with the land, because once we own property, we can then determine how best it should be managed. And so this area on the South Saluda River, we were able to implement these rock veins and oxygenate the water so that DNR could stock trout. It is now South Carolina's most preeminent trout fishing destination. So tens of thousands of people come and trout fish here because we were able to buy over a mile of frontage, and we now make it open to the public and accessible to the public. And they'll come all times of the year to fish this. I mean, it is always packed. It is just such a wonderful resource because we are able to buy this land, we are able to restore it and make it accessible to the public. And as much as I love brown trouts, I'm an angler. I used to guide out in Wyoming. I love brown trout and rainbow trout, but the most amazing fish that we have here in South Carolina, those fish are not native here, by the way. Those are introduced. They're from England. One of the most amazing fish species that we have here is the southern Appalachian brook trout. And they exist in these tiny little mountain streams. And the reason why they're only in these tiny little mountain streams is because of the brown trout and the rainbow trout. And they are arguably the most beautiful fish in North America, I think. And when they get into their mating season, which is November, a very cold time to go swimming in the streams and try and photograph these animals, they turn this bright red, and they just have these little battles. The males battle for this territory, and it's phenomenal. So knowing that these are one of the most remarkable fish species, we try to restore streams for them. So recently we purchased, now this is a very small property. This is 6.25 acres, just tiny, but it's a little inholding within Sumter National Forest that drains into the Chattooga River. So it's a headwaters of Pigpen Branch. And this property had a dam on it, with full of, the pond was full of bass and brim and all kinds of non-native species for the mountains. So what we did is we bought this property with our own money. We went out and then we raised funding from people to say, will you help us restore this? We want to remove the dam, remove the non-native fish. And in doing so, this linchpin project was able to free the headwaters for this stream and restore over 4 miles of brook trout stream. And we just did that. I mean, it just ended 2 months ago. This is a multi-year effort. And we have restored over 4 miles of brook trout stream for these amazing fish. If you can in November, go put on a mask and snorkel and go see them because they're just phenomenal. Just hope your wetsuit is thicker than mine because it was cold. Cold. All right, so another area that we focus on are the Piedmont seepage forests. And these are just right outside the Greenville, right around the Erie River watershed. This is a wonderful area. I'm originally from Florida, and swamps are my thing, like alligators, all that's my thing. So Piedmont seepage forests, I love them. They're beautiful. Unfortunately, these habitats have been historically drained and converted into farmland, or now these are now at the kind of epicenter of a housing boom outside Travelers Rest. So all these properties are getting drained and then built upon. And I get it. People don't think swamps are very attractive. They think these are worthless areas, but that's also what has sent a very unique species into rapid decline. This is the federally endangered bunched arrowhead. And I like to say it's more endangered than the giant panda because it only exists in Greenville County and Henderson County, North Carolina. That's it. That's it. That's the only place it lives. And here they are thriving in Travelers Rest. And so this is the beautiful little flower that it's a tiny little thing. And my board always says, Mac, if you can make an attractive picture of a bunch of arrowhead, like you're a good photographer. I'm still working at it because they're a tough species. But what we did is we built on TNC's initial, TNC is the Nature Conservancy, and nonprofit world is all about acronyms. So the Nature Conservancy's main tract that they gave to DNR, which preserved the bunched arrowhead. And over the years, we have built on it and added to it and added to it and added to it until just this year or last year, we closed on another property. So this is how we work. We try to pick a focus area or a focus species, and we just laser focus on it. And we go after it. And this is a Woodcock Woods is one we just closed on. And another focus area we love is Highway 11. Scenic Highway 11. Y'all have probably heard it called Scenic Highway 11 or the Cherokee Foothills National Scenic Byway. It is a nationally designated scenic byway. Unfortunately, the scenic just means it looks pretty until it doesn't. So there are no laws really governing it. There's no teeth. The only thing you're not allowed to do is put up a giant billboard on it, although people still put signs on it and there's not a lot of enforcement. So really the only thing you can do is either pursue conservation easements, or like we do is we go out and we buy land fee simple, because this area is one of our most scenic places where Table Rock is. It's where you go into Lake Kiwi. It's, you know, where you look out and you see Table Rock and you see Caesar's Head State Park. It is one of the most phenomenal drives. However, there's no real conservation effort going into it from anything other than nonprofit organizations going after them. So this, just the way that we work with the bunched arrowhead, just the way we work with the South Saluda, this is how we work in this area too. So in 2007, this is what the landscape looked like. And just to fast forward, this is what it will look like now, this year. So we have tried to fill in all these gaps to be able to protect these properties so that when you drive through this corridor, it remains the way you always imagine it to be. And not just that, but once you acquire these properties, then you can go and set foot on them and see what really makes them tick. And it's a phenomenal, these are trout streams. These are brilliant views that we have, but also we can open them up for the public. So 9 Times Forest, which exists along Highway 11, today is now South Carolina's most preeminent rock climbing destination. Tens of thousands of people come to Big Rock to climb, to boulder. They take their kids. I've seen 4-year-olds out climbing. It's a magnificent place. If you haven't been, it's wonderful for all the hikes. If you go up on top of the boulders, you get a new view every time you go. So land preservation is not just about filling in these places on the map. It's also about how it relates to people and how people can interact with these landscapes. And one last story I want to share with you all is another special plant species. So we're always looking for iconic species. The Oconee bell is a particularly iconic species because it's rhizomous. So it means that it can't just get picked up and then go, planted somewhere else. They stay above Highway 11, and their main habitat was in the Jocassee and the Kiwi Gorges watershed. So when Lake Jocassee and Lake Kiwi were built, about 80% of its habitat was just lost, immediately lost. And these are beautiful little plants. They just live right before, so about February is when they start blooming. They emit these beautiful blooms and people go crazy for these flowers. And we never really had a chance to work on them before because either it wasn't within our focus area. Then all of a sudden we met this woman named Sid Phillips. I'm going to share a little video about how she got us in to the Oconee bell.
I was on leave from my duty station in Italy, and it was just the most peaceful and pretty drive up through here, with the farmland. And then rounding that corner and seeing Jocassee for the first time, it still gives me chills. My name is Sydney Phillips, but most people call me Sid. And I moved up in this area because I mentor veterans here and I teach kayaking at Jocassee and Kiwi. And I take a lot of my veterans out into nature because nature is very healing. Just sitting by this stream has really helped a lot of people. I guess I took it for granted this community was protected, and it was shocking when this for sale sign came up. So I called the realtor and said, we have to save it. And then just started calling all of the groups around here, talking to everybody. when I reached out to Naturaland Trust, what I was hoping to get back in return was that I wasn't, completely crazy. That there were other people like me in organizations. And Frank said, you're with the right group because we're all crazy about conserving land and saving it. You're with the perfect group. I cried the first time I saw those Oconee Bell leaves, and I said it out loud. You little beautiful guys are gonna save this property. You're gonna be what saves this property. And then I kept going through the thicket and going and crawling on my hands and knees all the way down, and just more and more and more. I was like, oh my God, this is exciting. This is exciting. I don't think anyone really knew they were here.
The way I found out about the Boone Creek property is I just had an email from somebody called Sid Phillips, who was desperately trying to save a parcel of property over near Lake Jocassee on Boone's Creek. Well, that got my attention. When Duke Power flooded the Jocassee Valley and the Kiowee Valley, we lost at that time 60% of the world's habitat of this plant, Oconee bells. 60% in one fell swoop. One thing that's interesting about Oconee bells, most of those plants are genetic clones of a mother plant somewhere in that vicinity there. And that's a problem because it means there's not a lot of genetic diversity. So now here's this plant confined to the Jocassee watershed, and it can escape. There's no genetic diversity coming in from the outside, and it's kind of in a death spiral. So it may well be that these plants, as we experience climate change and things become warmer, we get more rapid and dramatic changes in the environment, it may be that genetic diversity in this population in Boone's Creek and McKinney's Creek that saves the entire species. It really falls upon nonprofit organizations like Naturaland Trust and those who support them to fill in that gap. Otherwise, we lose it all. And I honestly believe that future generations looking at the situation would say, now, let me get this straight. You had an opportunity to save these plants, which may well be the salvation for the entire species, and you didn't do it?
I don't know what else I can do, but I have no shame right now. I'll do it. I will talk to anybody. I'll do whatever it takes. I went through myself with a lantern, and did an inventory of what I'm willing to give up. The home I just bought, my Wagoneer, which was a dream car, everything that I've built, my savings, it's important that we save this.
What if I told you that last night, Naturaland Trust Board voted unanimously to purchase the property and protect it forever?
Are you kidding me? Please tell me you're serious.
You inspired us, Sid.
I'm stunned at what you just said. It's a dream. I'm waiting to wake up. I'm really waiting to wake up right now. I've even emailed the new lottery winners, lawyers, to say, hey, if you have some extra money and you want to do something with it, Naturaland Trust.
So we don't encourage everybody to try to mortgage their home to support us. But to me, Sid's journey, I look at maps all the time and we always think about, okay, how do we adjoin? But it really is for people who have grown up in this area, who've come to know these properties, come to know these species and come to know these plants and these views. It is so much more than that. There's a direct connection for the people, and especially me now coming to live here, I'm getting that connection too. And the more I'm out there, the more I'm connecting with it, the more I'm understanding it, the more I'm beginning to appreciate what exists here and how what exists here is truly unique in the world. And I want to pass that on, not only to you all, I want to pass it on to my kids and the very next generation that are going to get to come and know these properties too. Thank you all very much for your time. We have a few minutes? All right. Glad to take some questions if anybody has any. Yes. The Fireflies go up to Jones Gap State Park. You can also go, as the season progresses, you can also go to Brevard. You can go to Pisgah. There's a big showing in Pisgah, but I would recommend going into Jones Gap State Park, looking for areas where you have creeping cedar and just wait till it gets dark. And in the darkest places where they start to emerge and then they start to fill in the areas. It's just amazing. Yes, sir. The question was, do I know about the Venus flytrap that only grows in this state? Now, I don't know the exact species that grows here. I know there is a honeydew or a sundew that grows here that acts like a Venus flytrap, and it lives in the same bogs as the mountain sweet pitcher plant. And then basically in 1 square foot area, you can have 3 endangered plants all living in these montane bogs in South Carolina. There are fly traps that also live in North Carolina in the bogs there. But there is an area in Eva Chandler and Watson Cooper Heritage Preserve where you get these concentrations of carnivorous plants because there are so low nutrients in the soil on where they grow in these rock outcrops that they rely on insects and other animals to eat to be able to grow. It's just amazing. Oh, sorry. Yes, sir. Well, Philip Kilgore, who is here, can probably tell you about the history of that. But yes, Tommy Weitz did help architect some of the conservation of the Greenville watershed, but that is owned by Greenville Water. But it is permanently protected through their leadership by a conservation easement, which means it can never be developed. It can never be anything other than what it is right now. And they're being great stewards of it. Well, there is always the risk of eminent domain, I suppose. However, the last time they tried to put lines through our state parks and through our natural areas, people showed up and those lines didn't get built. So I would say if you ever have an objection to something, show up because it matters, because people showed up in droves and they abandoned those plans pretty quickly. I'll say one more thing about Naturaland Trust. We're very small. It's me and a board of directors. So when we have people like Sid Phillips who call us and plead to us, please, please preserve this property, it really is a phone call. It's a phone call or an email to my board. And we say, is this worth pursuing? And typically the answer is yes. Our MO, the way we operate and our strategic plan, as Frank Holloman, our president, says and laughs about, is the Lord will provide. So we will figure it out. The great thing about our organization is Tommy, in his infinite wisdom, left us with an endowment. So every single dollar we receive through donations or otherwise goes straight into the land that we're buying. It does not go into overhead. Our overhead's taken care of forever. So you all ever consider supporting land conservation? You ever want to go out to these properties? They're open to you all. I hope you enjoy them. I hope you go out and see for yourself some of the things and the animals that call it home. And I appreciate you having me today. Thanks.
Thank you, Mac. That was just terrific. You may not know this, but one of the core areas of focus of Rotary International is preserving the environment. And so it's very important that we have presentations like this and recognize the good work that's underway in the upstate. We have a representative of the Nature Conservancy and Ryan Thackeray here too, and probably some of others of you are involved in environmental conservation efforts, but we really appreciate having you. As with all our speakers, we will be donating a book to Alexander Elementary School's library. Appropriately enough, it has a natural theme to it called The Octopus Escapes. So we'll get Mac to sign that and give that to the young people at Alexander Elementary School. So a few things to have on your radar. Tiffany mentioned the cart luncheon next week. We may even have a few free tickets still available to that because we are one of the sponsors for that luncheon. So if you're interested, please see me and Jenny. Other things for you to be aware of. Our first Thirsty Thursdays, had to be careful how I said that, next week, 5 p.m. at Liability Brewery. Bring a guest to introduce him or her to Rotary. It should be a fun occasion, social, but also we'll be talking a little bit about Rotary, but it's primarily a social event to meet people within our club. So come out to that. Should be a fun time. On May the 6th, so this next Saturday, I believe, you can help the Reedy River Club with the Duck Derby. who wouldn't want to watch a bunch of plastic ducks go over the falls, right? So that'll be fun. And our next club meeting will be on May the 9th, and our former club president, Don Kuntz, will be back with us, and he'll be talking about the history of our club and Greenville. And then if you're looking to do some work out at Alexander Elementary, we have a volunteer opportunity on May 10th to help watch some students while the teachers have a special luncheon that we're assisting with. And I bet we have a health and happiness coming up as well. I thought I saw, does anybody here? I thought I saw Sunny, maybe. Does anybody, do you know when the next health and happiness is? Okay, we will have one. Remember, get a guest to Discover Rotary. We have a few more opportunities in May. Get your 3 sticker. We had a wonderful group over there. I got to speak to them. So smile and speak it. As my granddad used to say, remember the 2 S's. If you see somebody here, smile and speak that you don't know on your way out. And look forward to seeing you all very soon. So please stand with me and we'll say the 4-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? We're adjourned.